Just waiting for this to go live. Checking. And I believe there it is. Mute myself. There is a delay, so when I see myself over here, I am delayed. That is really funny. All right. Okay. So the comments are a little bit delayed. I am going to pop out the chat over here, and then I'm going to close that because that's really distracting. Robert, brother, how the heck are you? Happy Wednesday, my friend. I want to say Privyet Mamula Papula Spasibo. Message for my in-laws who are watching from Ukraine. Very, very happy. Love my in-laws. Huge supporters of me and the channel and all of this. Also, just huge emotional support from them, and well wishes to my whole family in Ukraine. Obviously, there's a lot going on over there. We pray for them and their safety every day. So far, so good. So we're going to keep praying for them. JM, hey, how are you, brother? Good to see you. Robert, I am good. Things are good here. It is still pretty freaking cold here. I can actually turn off that chat over there. I'm actually getting used to the StreamYard software. This is partly why I've been waiting to officially kick the show off. As you'll see, the title of this show is actually episode 0, because today I am going to be announcing when the first episode of the show is going to start. I'm also going to be announcing a couple of things about that, but I'm going to save that until later on. Right now, I'm just going to kick off the show. Start talking about topic number 1 that I wanted to talk about. Yes, JM, absolutely. Morning coffee, still drinking it at noon. I will typically drink coffee until easily 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Today I've actually been going kind of crazy because I've been busy over with some work stuff. So I'm actually almost out of coffee, but that's okay because I got myself some Arizona iced tea ready to go. Not a sponsor. But if Arizona iced tea does, hey, absolutely would accept Arizona iced tea as a sponsor of the show. So anyhow, here we are, second show of 2023, and there's some cool stuff that is going on right now. If you are a racing fan, you probably know we got Supercross season kicked off this last Saturday with Anaheim 1. So pretty good night of racing. Pretty happy to see Jet Lawrence continuing on his success in 2023 with the 250 main win. Eli Tomac, typically a slow starter, won his first Anaheim 1 this Saturday, which is pretty cool. If you haven't had a chance to go back and watch the highlights, I highly suggest watching them 450 highlights because Eli is, in my humble opinion, probably one of the most physical riders that's ever been in Supercross and motocross history. I don't think there's ever been anybody that trains like Eli. Little bit of background: if you know who Eli's father is, John Tomac, John Tomac is a world-class mountain biker. He won the Ironman downhill like a whole bunch of times, which is an absolutely insane mountain bike race. So yeah, very, very cool to see Eli just absolutely throw down Saturday night. He went down partway through the race, I think dropped back to like third or fourth, and then still came back and won, which just a testament to the fact that the guy rides super hard, super crazy. So congrats to him. Yes, JM, that was the next one, which is the Chili Bowl. If you have never watched a Chili Bowl, if you've never heard of the Chili Bowl, after the show today, make sure you type in Chili Bowl 2023. Watch yourself some highlights. This is the Super Bowl of open wheel dirt track racing. The best, hands down, the best open wheel drivers show up for the Chili Bowl every single year. There is over 300 entries almost every single year. And you have absolutely some of the best drivers in the world, but hands down the best open wheel dirt track drivers in the world. Absolutely an amazing event. I had the luxury of being there a few times myself. It is super fun, very well organized. They run things very, 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 very professionally, and I would say as an organization enforcing the rules, they're incredibly consistent, which is something difficult to say in motorsports at any point. But the rules there are pretty wide open. As far as the cars themselves, but as far as racing is concerned, racing incidents, they're very, very consistent with the calls that they make. This is a week-long event that goes on. It starts Sunday with practice sessions. Monday kicks off racing. Tuesday is racing. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, culminating in Saturday, which is the championship Saturday. So in order to make the main event on Saturday, you have to go through your, qualifying night. So every night there will be qualifying heats and a main event. Top two cars from the main event on any given night transfer automatically to Saturday night's main event. The remainder of the field are broken up into pairs that will go into another lettered main event that happens on Saturday, and they call that the alphabet. So last year they had an O main event. So if you finished in the top six, Lacos, morning, brother. Oh, by the way, morning, Thompson. If you make it into the top six in the O, then you transfer to the M, then you transfer to the N, and so forth and so forth until you get to the final, which is the A main. In the history of the Chili Bowl, I don't think anybody has ever started from the very last main event on Saturday and worked their way all the way into the A main of Saturday night. But there have been people that have started in like the E or the F main and worked their way through and gotten to the A main on Saturday night, which is a feat. Because like I said, these are hands down the best open wheel drivers on the planet. Addicted to RC, thank you for joining. It is, like I said, if you are a fan of auto racing and you've never seen like full midget racing, this is absolutely one of the best races to watch, because this is a race that everybody wants to win this thing. It's a big deal. The trophy that you get's what's called a Golden Driller. And it is a very coveted trophy. And we're talking about guys like Tony Stewart, Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Sammy Swindell. These are some of the guys that have won this race. Like Tony Stewart has won this race one time. And Tony is considered like an all-time great in open wheel racing. He achieved something nobody's ever achieved, which was National Midget, National Sprint Car, and Silver Crown Series championships in the same year in USAC, which is still to this day only one person has ever done, because it is very, very difficult to have that much success in one season. Let me see if there's anything else. Oh, that's right. Dakar Rally is also going on. I think today is a rest day. Yesterday was stage 9. I think between 9 and 10, they had a rest day, but they might be running stage 10 today. It's another pretty fun one to watch. I know typically you'll see every once in a while somebody will make one of the Dakar semi-trucks in an RC form, which is always pretty cool to see. The Tekin, I know he made one a couple of years ago that was outstanding, really, really scale, which, yeah, when it comes to scale, I don't have the patience to be able to take that long. Generally what happens when I do something, when I'm working on something scale, it takes me a super long time, because I get bored with not getting it finished. Typically, when I start building a kit, I want to get it done. Like my Phoenix, which is sitting there, which you'll notice it is sitting on the bench. I am getting it ready. I'm expecting there to be not rain. So, yeah, not rain is good. It's been a while since I've had the Phoenix out. I think since any car out since like October, partly just cold weather and work and stuff like that. But yeah, the Phoenix, I did the Phoenix in like a day and a half. The first day, I started working on it at like UPS didn't show up until like 5 or 6 o'clock at night. And I worked on it for just a couple hours, and mostly it was just cutting parts out of the tree. And then I started at 5 a.m. the next morning, and I finished it at like 8 or 9 o'clock that night. Addicted, yeah, 2 Cups copy, working on new closet in my basement for the kids' toys. Luckily, my youngest is 19, so no more. Well, caveat: no more toys. They do have toys, they just don't have as many. And as they get older, the price of their toys just increases in cost exponentially. But the nice thing is once you build a closet for all of those toys and get them organized, within a day, that all will be a disaster area again. Because that's how kids work. They'd like it. Thank you, Lacos. I love the Phoenix. This is the Phoenix Portal, the first Phoenix. It's an awesome truck. Oldest is 20, youngest is 2. Oh yeah, so 2. You're right in there. 2 is when they start to get fun. You know, that first couple of years, learn how to talk, learn how to walk, getting them out of diapers, all of that stuff. That is the tough time of being the parent. Once they get past that stage and they start becoming like a little human being, then they start getting to be tons of fun. And yeah, my oldest is 29, youngest is 19. Actually, just got 2. But yeah, that is kudos to you, Addicted, for spending some time building an organizer for kids' toys. I am an adult, and I'm not. This all looks kind of organized, but from like what you see here over, it's chaos over here. There's just absolute. It's absolute chaos over here. I've been thinking about how I want to change some things up over here, just because I want to try and move my scale garage to be sort of right here. Right now, it's kind of back there, but it's not. But I want it to be sort of here where the shelf is at. The only trick is my modem and my freaking Wi-Fi router are both sitting here, and it's a pain because they're plugged into the ceiling plug. Hello, 432. Good to see you, Toby. Good to see you, my friend. Welcome to the show. So speaking of the show, I see I've got about 12 people in here. So the show is going to be official. Last week, NorCal said the shit that needs to be said, and my co-host and I both agreed that is an excellent name for the show. So thank you, NorCal, for that. Credit him 100% for the name of the show. But officially, the first episode's going to kick off February 1st, which is a Wednesday. It's going to be noon every Wednesdays. Going to try and keep it at an hour, but it's sort of a free flow. So some days maybe a little shorter, some days maybe a little longer, but it is going to be every Wednesday at noon Eastern time. And you heard it right. I am going to have a co-host. I'm going to leave my co-host as a surprise for the first episode. Somebody I've been on live streams with before, and I'm super stoked because this is going to be a fun show where we talk about everything. I'm not just always going to stick to RC related stuff. We're going to delve into anything and everything. Whatever shit people want to talk about, we're going to talk about it here. And it's also, I'm going to be open and honest. I'm going to give my opinion on shit, and I have no problem whatsoever, having discussions with people who have opinions that are different than mine, because that's what makes the world interesting. If everybody had the same opinion and we all walked around in those, Hollywood movie groovy, like gray mono suits that they always show what's going to happen in the future, it would be freaking boring. It's boring. Lame. So who the hell wants that? Yes, little adjustable. I love this chair. I got it was Amazon chair. They're not terribly expensive for a gaming chair, but I had another sort of racing seat style gaming chair before this one, and it didn't last very long. I've had this one for a couple of years now. It's super comfortable. Yes, Lacos, absolutely. Borderline robots. I'm from the generation where, I'm a Gen Xer. We question everything. We're the beginning of the parental advisory for lyrics and, screaming and yelling. And it's absolutely important. And I mentioned this, it's absolutely important for us to question everything, to question everybody and everything. Because there's so much shit is wrong nowadays. I'm going to do this probably every show where I'm going to get on my freaking soapbox. I'm sure everybody remembers a couple months ago, the former president's house got raided by the FBI because they said he had classified documents there, and they literally raided his house. Now, take it into consideration that every former president keeps his he is Secret Service detail. So it's not like a bunch of random people could just walk into your house, because Secret Service is probably going to kill you long before you ever get there. So it's somewhat guarded location. It's not just, you know, but anyhow, they took a bunch of stuff, took a bunch of boxes, found out that he had some classified documents in there, which shit, who cares? Most of the things that are listed as classified is a bunch of shit. But the current president of the United States made a point of going on television and doing an interview and talking about how irresponsible it was. Well, and yesterday we find out that that same president who said is irresponsible, he had classified documents in a freaking closet in his office at UPenn. Come on. Come on. Stupid crap. And that's part of the stupid crap that I end up watching, because it freaking kills me that I spend enough time watching news about that kind of crap and politics on TV that it makes me freaking crazy. But I digress. That is why we, question everything. I think if anybody and everybody's paying attention to what's been going on with Twitter and what Elon Musk has been doing with Twitter, he's basically been document dumping everything from Twitter's past. And there's a whole bunch of crap that's coming out about how, yes, our government was telling Twitter to censor people because it didn't fit the narrative. One particular thing that they were particularly adamant about censoring was I don't want to say it because YouTube will freaking flag me for misinformation, but the whole 19 thing, which they were banning doctors, they were banning anybody that had anything to say that wasn't exactly what the CDC was saying. And the problem that I have with that is the CDC wasn't saying anything. They were, well, maybe we should wear 2 masks. Maybe we should walk around in one of those bubble things so that we can all be safe. But anybody that questioned what anybody at the CDC or the NIH had to say, either they got banned outright, their tweets got flagged, and this happened on YouTube as well. Anytime anybody talks about the whole 19 thing, there ends up being a little banner at the bottom that basically directs you over to the CDC. Problem being is that in the beginning, all these people that were getting censored and banned, a lot of the things that they had said 6 months later turned out to be true. Like, we know that one of the vaccines manufacturers actually said in a hearing in the UK that they never tested whether or not their vaccine stopped the transmission of that. They never even tested, never even tried it. But yet all politicians ran around and said, if you get the shot, everything will go back to normal. Yes, JM, BS, and more BS. Because I see today that they're talking again that there's going to be another outbreak. We're going to have another problem with the 19, which all I can say is freaking knock it off. I think everybody knows that the whole 19 thing was grossly exaggerated at how bad it actually was. Now, there are people who did die. There are people who are extremely susceptible, but it is a very small number of people. I recently heard another YouTuber that talked about a poll that they polled Democrats and Republicans. Republicans estimated that 20% of all people that got the Rona went to the hospital. Democrats, up to 70% of Democrats believed that 50% of everybody that got the Rona went to the hospital. The reality is it was between 1 and 5%. So between 1 and 5% of all people that got it ended up going to the hospital and having to have some kind of prolonged hospital stay. I personally know somebody who was in the hospital for 3 weeks with it. He had a previous unknown condition and he had mild asthma, and that was a huge contributor. But on top of all of that, there were doctors, there were people that were saying that there were certain other medications that would work, that would help, and they would outright get banned and they would get kicked off. So anyhow, I think it's a good thing what Elon Musk is doing over at Twitter. I think it's about time. I don't like Twitter, never have. I think Twitter and TikTok both are two platforms in social media that probably just need to go away altogether, or have way more strict rules on what you're allowed to post there and how those companies act. TikTok especially. One of the creators of TikTok actually said that his 2 kids, 8 and 6, were not allowed to watch TikTok. He just outright that says that that's not appropriate. He also went on to explain that there are parental controls where you can basically change what anybody under 13 is allowed to see. Me personally, I don't know how they chose 13, but I would say TikTok needs to be 18 and over, because a lot of the stuff that people put on TikTok and a lot of videos is just simply not for kids. And kids have way too much access to crap nowadays. Yes, JM, most people who got the shot got multiple times because they kept saying that you have to get booster shots. Essentially, what they've done is it's a flu shot. It's a flu shot, and it's going to be something that you're probably going to have to take every single year. And that is not a vaccine. Vaccine is something that gets rid of. Sorry, my hat's gone all freaking wonky on me. A vaccine is supposed to be something that stops you from getting something and stops you from transmitting something. And that if it's just a flu shot doesn't stop you from getting the flu, obviously, because there's so many different variations. It just makes the effects of the flu much less on you. My dad used to get flu shots every single year. Me neither, JM. I'm fairly certain that I had the Rona. Probably a couple of times I've gotten really sick over the last couple of years. A couple months ago, I got really sick, and then probably a month later, I was sick again, equally as bad. But I personally just believe that, it should be natural. We should build up natural immunity to things. It's kind of like everybody running around with the freaking hand sanitizer, and that a lot of doctors are now saying that that's a bad idea. You shouldn't sanitize your hands constantly, because a lot of things that your body fight naturally come to you via your hands. And if you're constantly, you're going to end up building these super bacteria, super problems, because they're going to eventually figure out how to be immune to the hand sanitizer. And yeah, bad stuff. Anyhow, going to get off of that soapbox, and we're going to talk about some RC stuff, because something happened this week. Take a drink there. Red Cat in the Gen 9. I'm going to make a prediction. I think that Red Cat in 2023 is going to establish themselves as a top tier manufacturer. I think they're going to be joining the ranks of the Traxxases, the Axials, the Elements. I think primarily because Red Cat has been building up to this. Red Cat's been building up to this, and the current president of Red Cat is actually a former president of Axial. So I think that they have spent some time building up to this. Sorry, I do have some issues that are happening at work, and that's what's happening is things are getting taken care of. So everybody is chiming in to say that things are back up and running. But I think that over the last couple of years, Red Cat has been building up. Now, Red Cat's also done some unique things with the lowriders. They've got some bashers out there now. They've updated the Gen 8 to the Gen 9, which is, for what I can see, looks pretty freaking awesome. Licensed international Scout 800 body, which all the normal, influencer talking heads all said the same thing, that it's not to scale and but fact of the matter is 12.3 inch wheelbase is sort of the standard for crawlers. If you're going to make a crawler and you want it to be standard and normalized so that everybody can go out and buy different bodies and whatnot, put it on your rig, you got to make it 12.3. So even though the Scout 800 was a tiny little thing, they had to make it fit and make it work on a 12.3 so that they didn't pigeonhole themselves to people only being able to run that body on the rig. It's a pretty smart business move. Don't go out and make your rig a 12.8 inch wheelbase like Element did with the Gatekeeper and the Ecto, so that you're limited to what bodies you can put on it, or you're only going to be able to put the cab on, which, it works. And to a certain degree, I understand why Element did it with the Gatekeeper, because of the rear suspension geometry would have been funky at 12.3, and those trailing arms would have been too short. I have never had a Red Cat, but at some point this year, I think there's two rigs that I really want to get. I want to get the Traxxas TRX 4. I'm sort of debating whether or not I want a 10 scale or the Mini. I'm sort of leaning towards the 18 scale, only because I have a bunch of 10 scale rigs here. And another one that I'm only going to drive every once in a while isn't going to be, and the TRX4M. I have the micro crawling course. I play with my 24, the SEX 24 all the time, because it's easy and it's convenient to just walk over there and play with it and then bring it back over here and set it down. The other one I think is going to be the Red Cat Gen 9. It looks like a solid rig. It looks like a solid platform. I know tons of people who like the Gen 7, love the Gen 8. Every time you go to events or whatnot, you see Gen 8s running around all over the place. But I think that Red Cat I think they are prime to, at least in the crawler market, I think that they are prime to sort of step into that top tier category. They're still using, from what Harley explained, they're still using the somewhat more rigid nylon based plastics on there. which does tend to make them a little more brittle. But at the same time, when you're talking about crawling, that plastic typically slides over the rocks better than, say, the softer plastics do. And yeah, Lacos, the Gen 9 body looks good. They did it right. And I think what Red Cat has learned from the lowriders and scaling out the lowriders, I think that they've figured out how to get the crawler scale bodies to look good without making them super, super expensive. That's, I've been on this kick for several months now about the cost of RCs, and the Gen 9, I believe, is right now they're showing it pre-order $399 for an RTR. I'm okay with that. The only thing that you have to supply, I believe, is probably your lipos, which most of us already have lipos, so you're not even going to end up buying a new lipo just for that rig. You probably already have like 10 of them in the bag, like they're back there, like I do. So $399 is not bad for a 10th scale RTR, especially one where the body looks that good. And light buckets, front and rear light buckets. The dash has light buckets in it, so you can light the dash up. I think that is a big plus. I know that is one of the things I really like about the Phoenix is, light ready body. It came with everything you need to just plug the lights in there. Vanquish even has a light kit that you can plug in there, which I did, which is, it's okay. Not as good. I think My Trick RC still, hands down, their light packages and light systems are still the best. But it's pretty good. It's got a switch in it, so you plug it into the receiver, and if you have a channel on your radio, you can switch the lights on and off, which I do like that. That's the first rig that I've had where I've had a controller where I'm able to switch the lights on and off, and it is pretty freaking cool. Yeah. They cut the rails. Yeah, the Gatekeeper is still one of my favorite rigs. I like the way it looks, but the rails are too long. And that's just Element being economical and using the Sundero platform for everything. And personally, I've always thought that that's a really brilliant move on Element's part, as to not just keep making and putting new stuff in here and there, and tweaking, so that you can't take a new rig that comes out or take an old rig and update it with all the new rig stuff instead of just buying the new rig. An Element, if you have an original Element truck, the Sundero RTR, you can go through and make it into any of the new rigs that Element has come out with since, which is a pretty good idea. I think that's solid. Yeah, Toby, that Red Cat is stepping it up. And I think they're prime to come into the market and add more, because more manufacturers, more competition is great, and there are other manufacturers out there that they're just not as good. That's the kind of shit that needs to be said. I'm sorry, Cross RC, your stuff looks pretty good, but it is not as good as an Axial. It's not as good as an Element. It's definitely not as good as a Traxxas. RC four-wheel drive, your stuff looks great. It's got great scale to it, but it isn't nearly tough enough. Cross RC and RC four-wheel drive, I think, have different issues with them being tough, but it's just a toughness issue. I've never ever met anybody that has a Cross RC that hasn't complained about the transmission being weak, and I've never met anybody that has an RC four-wheel drive anything that hasn't complained about the diffs being weak and the axle housings being weak. To the fact that there's a whole aftermarket for RC four-wheel drive stuff just to make them tougher. Yeah, Lacos. Element has grown quite a bit. Element having the backing of Associated, essentially just being another wing in the Associated factory there. That gave them a huge leg up on, I think, everybody. Especially when you're talking about John Schultz and Brad Geck, and those guys being involved at Associated to create Element, guys that had experience with scale and trailing and crawling, that helped Element come in with the Sandero. As the Sandero was great right at launch. There were most of the complaints about the Sandero was that the body was crap. And it was, it's true. The body was crap, but it was an unlicensed body. Element having it be in two pieces without any braces or anything, I think they just underestimated how much people were just going to beat the tar out of those things. And I also think that Element figured that, look, you're going to get this RTR, you're going to take it out in your driver, you're going to beat it up for a little bit, and then you're just going to go and buy another body anyhow. So, But also the fact that Element came in at a price point that is still lower than everybody else right now, by the way. An Element kit is still only like $239, which is pretty good. Lacos grenaded a Yoda diffs at Vasquez Rocks, which, yeah, that is a common thing with RC four-wheel drive, is that you have to keep spare parts for your diffs on hand constantly. You might as well carry parts around in your backpack, because it's likely that you're going to have to fix it. And that to me is one of the tragic things about RC four-wheel drive. Their trucks look as good as they do. They perform as well as they do. And they just can't handle. They can't hang. If you take a RC four-wheel drive TF2 out and you take an Axial SCX3 out, I guarantee you that SCX3 is going to go through 10 times more punishment without any problems as that TF2 is. And that TF2 is probably going to have, it's probably going to cost you a little bit. I think an SCX3 RTR right out of the box, you can take that thing out, maybe swap the tires and wheels out, which if you go cheap and go, Amazon on there, you can spend $60 or $70 wheels and tires on the thing, and you can go out and have fun and probably go out for a whole day without any issues whatsoever. RC four-wheel drive, I think you could probably guarantee that you're going to spend $70 or $80 putting things in that truck before you take it out. Now, caveat to that is steering servos. Nobody has a good steering servo in an RTR or anything that comes from the factory. I think all of us know that that's the first thing that everybody does. If you get an RTR, is you yank that freaking servo out and put something in that's not going to die instantly. Yes, Toby, they are more trail trucks and moving models. And, trail truck wise, if you go easy on your trucks, if you're doing, pretty normal trailing, and you're not going hard after like rock crawling, most trucks will do pretty good. I pick on Cross and RC four-wheel drive because I personally have seen them like literally fail within 45 minutes of someone taking it out of the box and not doing anything particularly crazy with it. Cross, I watched somebody at Corona Del Mar that they had literally just bought the truck without the doors on it, with the tube doors on it. They had literally taken the thing out of the box the night before, hadn't done anything with it, plugged a battery in it, and was literally out on the rocks at Corona Del Mar for like 20 minutes and like stripped out 2 of the gears in the transmission. And RC four-wheel drive, I just know from everybody that complains about RC four-wheel drive's diffs that it is what it is. Jam, I typically, it's kind of like the steering servo. I typically do that as well. I take the receiver out and put a receiver in. It's usually either my Radio Link or my Futaba. And sometimes I even like take the receiver out of another truck, which is what I did with the Phoenix. I actually took the receiver from another truck and put it in that one. Nixter, howdy, brother. Yes. Hello to you. Good to see you, my friend. Yeah, I did kind of pick an oddball time at Wednesday, middle of the day, but I did it because sometimes there's going to be like adult talk here, and I figure that most of the time the kiddos are going to be off at school, or it's the middle of the day, they're going to be off doing something, not sitting and watching me on YouTube. But yes, and again, for those of you that weren't here earlier when I announced, I am doing this show every Wednesday at noon Eastern time. The first official episode will be February 1st. I'm still going to do a show next week. I might take the week off after that. Yeah, see, and Nixer, that's the problem that I have. I'm kind of an early I am an early riser. I'm usually up at 4:30 every day. So I don't stay up really, really late. So a lot of the live shows, they'll start at 9:00 Eastern time, and I'm usually still awake at that point, but I'm falling asleep at that point. But yeah. Also, I'm like I said, I might take the week after next off before the first official show hits. That would be officially episode 1. And I am going to have a co-host that's going to be joining me every week. And it is somebody that everybody probably knows. I am going to save that as a surprise for the first episode. He and I have been talking about it. We've been talking about doing this type of show where we're not going to be beholden to sponsors or political correctness or pretty much anything for that matter. This is a no holds barred, no filtered, say what you want to say, and also not something where if I say something, if I give you an opinion and you don't agree with it, it's plenty okay to go over there in the chat and disagree. We should be able to disagree. Part of what needs to change in society being able to disagree and still hang out and talk. I've literally seen people that have cut off their friends and family because they don't agree with them, like about politics, like literally not speaking to their family anymore because their family liked a particular person for president and they can't handle that. So they disconnect themselves from their family, which is asinine. It's just asinine. First of all, if you and your family are that serious about politics and you're that polarized about politics, you need to see a therapist. Because it's not, it shouldn't be that important. It's important for people to pay attention and recognize how screwed up governments are. And me personally, my political ideology, I lean to the right. I am a conservative, but I don't pick one particular party over another, because I do believe that people in this country and all over the world have forgotten that politicians are scumbags, liars, and cheats. If they're not kissing babies, they're trying to steal their candy. And I think if everybody took that approach, everybody would stop listening to what these jackasses have to say. Scott, hello, sir. Locos RC, New Zealand. I love the fact that I'm freaking international, baby. Live show, international. Privyet Mamula Papula Spasibo. That's a message directly for my mother and father-in-law in Ukraine, whom I know are watching today, because my wife was talking to them earlier, and my mother-in-law mentioned that she saw the banner for the show and that she would be watching, even though she doesn't actually understand any English. So, hello, Mama, Papa. Also, hello to my mom down in Florida, who may or may not be watching. Sometimes she does, sometimes she doesn't. But yes, welcome, Scott, down in New Zealand. That is very, very cool. Last week we had James from RCU Next Tuesday in the chat hanging out with us. So it is cool that the show is reaching out. But anyhow, yeah, this show is it's RC related, but it's not strictly about RC. We can talk about whatever we want here. Wow, see, Scott's in the future, which is cool because it's Thursday there, so he's chatting with us from the future. I like that. And it's also good that it's at 7 a.m. That means that my show started at roughly 6 o'clock in the morning in New Zealand, which, hey, if you're getting ready for work and you want to just plop the YouTube on and listen to me ramble on for a bit while you're getting ready for work, that's cool. Thank you, Scott. Actually, thank you, everyone who's come on and hang out and chatted on the show. I like doing this. I like doing live shows. I had a ton of fun when I was doing the 11 Charlie live shows. I enjoyed doing it. It just, for me personally, I needed to step away from the organization for a number of reasons that I'm not going to get into. But yeah, I like doing it. I thought about it for a couple of months that I wanted to do a live show. I just never did it. So I'm glad to be back doing a live show. I'm also glad to be back doing a live show under my rules, under my channel. So I'm not beholden to anyone. I don't have to. If I'm going to say something that offends someone, bummer. You know, if I bring up something that somebody doesn't like I said, you're all welcome to go into the chat and disagree, and we can have a discussion. If you have any questions about why I say something or whether it beef, by all means go in there in the chat and say, Rich, what the hell do you mean by that? What the hell are you talking about? Because like I said earlier, question everything. If I say something, if I spout off some stats or facts or some crap, and you've seen something different or heard otherwise, by all means, freaking call me on it. Hey, Nick, take care, my friend. Hope all is well up there. That is another international. I forgot. Nixter is, I believe, Nova Scotia. Which any of you, if you haven't checked out any of the other channels that are in here chatting right now, make sure you go check everybody out. Subscribe to their channels. The RC YouTube community, for the most part, is pretty good. Pretty good people, and helping one another and sharing with one another, and especially helping one another grow their channels, is, I know, something that most of the YouTubers out there are always willing to help, and me as well. Especially during the live show here, if you have any questions about YouTube channels, growing YouTube channels, feel free to ask. I may or may not have a good answer. My channel has 1,400 and something subscribers. I've been doing this for probably 3 years. I think about 3 years now, maybe going on to my 4th year. And I have enjoyed that my channel has sort of just creeped along, growing throughout that time. My channel isn't crazy. I'm not up there with Harley and Matt and freaking Sparks and Talbot and all those guys. But I did do a fair amount of homework on growing channel and what helps, what works. I definitely know what doesn't work. And that is, if you want to grow your channel and eventually that ultimate goal of being a full-time YouTuber, yeah, everybody wants to be a full-time YouTuber because they're all rich and famous. And I joke because not everybody wants that, because it's not as glamorous as you might think. I know a couple of very big YouTubers that talk about the amount of work and effort that they put into their channel in order to maintain what they've got. And they do spend a tremendous amount of time working, and more so than when they actually had a regular 9-to-5 job. And YouTube doesn't pay quite as good as, it definitely doesn't pay quite as good as it used to, but it definitely doesn't pay that well. So I'm about I think I sort of kicked off my RC part of this channel it was my birthday in 2019, I think. So 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Yeah, I'm about 4 years, going into my 4th year here. It took me about almost a year and 3/4, almost 2 years to get to that 1,000 subscriber mark. It took me probably another 6 months or so to hit the 4,000 watch hour mark. And then it took me basically a year after that, I got my first AdSense payment from YouTube, which was $102.74. The check, because I printed it out on a piece of paper. It's somewhere in that bookcase over there. It took me about a year to get that after I'd monetized my channel. And then just in December, I got my second payment from AdSense, which was about 6 months after my first check, which was an additional it was actually $101 and some change. So in 4 years of having my channel, I made exactly $200 from YouTube. It's not enough to pay the bills. but also looking at the amount of money, let's say a channel with 100,000 subscribers, if you're averaging, 3,000 views per video, you probably might make $200 to $300 a month. It's not that great. You might bring in a couple $1,000s a year. Now, if that's the goal, is to make enough money to pay for your hobby, then that's great. But if you're in it to make a living, you really got to get up into that, probably 250 to 500,000 subscriber mark in order to be really bringing in enough views to generate that income. Because really for YouTube, it's all about views. The amount of hours, amount of subscribers you have, pretty inconsequential. It's all about the number of views that you get per video. And their ratio is that you get about 10%. So if you have 1,000 subscribers, you can figure that if you're doing good, you're going to get about 100 views per video. Therefore, if you have 100,000 subscribers, you're going to be getting 10,000 views per video. But the ratio doesn't always work out exactly perfect. The people that make the real money in social media, in YouTube and whatnot, a lot of that is sponsorships, and now what you see a lot of YouTube channels doing, which is creating memberships. That generates a lot of money for your YouTube channel, primarily because it's just constant income. But merchandising, unless you have something that sells pretty good, I know that you can go to the links for my store over on Teespring. I bought a couple of things from Teespring and they're okay. Some novelty stuff like the mugs are cool, but like some of the clothing and whatnot, I personally have tried all the stuff that I got as far as the shirts and the hoodies and whatnot. I went with the high quality version of it, but the printing that they do isn't that. It's not spectacular. Ooh, it's an RC car. Thank you for joining. Good to see you. But yeah, I mean, me personally, YouTube was originally I started because I wanted to make money, and I thought that the goal was, make a YouTube channel, become, big and famous and make lots of money, and then that will be my job. And after about the first 6 months, I realized that is just utter nonsense. The amount of work that you have to put in to do that in order to grow your channel to that level, I would still rather have a 9-to-5 job. Keep doing a 9-to-5 job that I can work at, make money at, and keep this part fun. For me, that's the most important part, was fun. When I started RCs in the channel, I was getting back into RC cars after pretty much being out of it for, probably 10 years. And I got into it first going back and racing off-road. Coach D, good to see you, my friend. I started racing, and I had several months of pretty consistent racing. And then while I was at the racetrack, there were several guys that were not at the race one particular weekend because they had gone to Proline by the Fire. And at that point, I had never really seen or heard much of Scale or trail trucks. And the following week, they came out, and several of them had their trucks with them. And I was like, that is freaking cool. Then I started watching YouTube videos, and I got my first trail truck, my Axial CRC Jeep, and like almost instantly I was like, oh, this is the part of RC that I really, really like. Racing is stressful. This is relaxing, and this is I can put a battery in this truck. I can throw it in the back seat of the truck. My wife and I can go out for a hike. I can take the truck out and drive the truck around while I'm hiking with my wife and have fun. And it snowballed into where I eventually got a camera. And in the beginning, you watch most of my really old videos. That's all my wife filming. I did none of the filming whatsoever. All I was doing was just the editing. And then it got to a point where I was going out and filming myself because I was going out more and more often, and I was going to places that weren't necessarily going to be fun for my wife. Some of my great filming locations were actually terrible places in real life. A lot of the places where you see where it's basically a storm runoff where we lived in Ventura that went right through the middle of town. And under the roads and whatnot, and then they would pile the rocks up and then concrete them in. It was like built for RC crawling. It's awesome areas, but a lot of times the water there was like horrifically stinky because it would get trapped. There was also always a ton of homeless people running around that were weird. So yeah, it was. Most of the places that I went to were not places where my wife would generally want to go hang out at. Frankentanken. Now that is something I got to see. Yeah, that Laco's that selfie stick idea came to me from CCXRC, which came to him from Frank the Tank RC or the Tank RC. And I simply, I just modded it a whole bunch to fit what I wanted to do so that I could film and drive at the same time without having to do the whole one-handed driving thing, because I suck at one-handed driving. And generally what ended up happening was I wrecked a whole bunch and I never got any good footage. And it was on one of the live shows that Tony actually mentioned that the selfie stick thing. And when I went back and started researching it, I was like, oh, hey, this is freaking brilliant. And it's relatively inexpensive to do, and it works absolutely perfect. Yeah, definitely post another video of that, because I would like to see the Frankentanken. It sounds interesting. Yeah, for me, the making videos, when I first started actually editing videos, that is when I realized how much I enjoyed that part of the process. That it was almost as enjoyable as being out filming the cars and driving the cars and having fun with the cars. It was almost as enjoyable going back and watching the footage and editing it to make an actual video. And we'll pause there to check on work. But yeah, the editing process just became part of the fun. And that is really where my YouTube channel went from there. Was not so much about trying to make money and doing all of this and that, because that's sort of a really lofty goal, but it's not terribly realistic. And I made it more about the fun and the entertaining part, and just making videos that people would like to watch, and would enjoy. A lot. If you go back and watch some of my early videos, they're super long, and I didn't realize, because I enjoyed making them, I enjoyed watching them. It took me a while to realize that making a 15-minute long RC crawling music video was too much. And I would literally go out with the intent of, sometimes I would film at a location just to get enough to make one video. One 15-minute video, I might be out for 2 hours to get all the footage and the shots and everything. And in that 2 hours, there are times where I might not have even gotten enough good footage that I thought, where there were some parts where I might splice some things in and do some unnecessary slow-mo in order to make the videos, because 15 minutes long. But yeah, now you'll see my videos are much shorter. I think because it's like, to be honest, 15 minutes is a long video to watch for anything, especially if it's a tiny truck driving around in the same basic spot, doing the same basic thing. I think the magic number for me is about 6 or 7 minutes. And then I will see, about that 7 minute, 8 minute marker. So you start to see it people really taper off. It's like, enough, Rich. We get it. But yeah, that is my, just as far as YouTube and growing. My best advice to anybody, if you want to grow your YouTube channel, is just focus on your content. Obviously, the most important thing about your videos and your channel is the video content. So if you just try to make the best content that you can make, your channel's gonna grow. And some of the best advice that I got from some other YouTubers was, make a whole bunch of videos, because the beginning videos that you're make are gonna be not as good. Your first video isn't gonna be as good as the 100 video that you've made. Your 250 video is gonna be better than your 100th video, just because you're learning along the way. Yes, I agree. And that is precisely, a lot of times when you go back and watch videos of mine, you will see water splashes is something that I typically do in slow-mo, because it does look cool. And also because I like to film in 4K, 60 frames a second, I can slow down that footage, but it's still very, very crisp. The gravel throw, I give credit to another content creator, BSRC, also known as JB. He does some of the best gravel spitting slow-mo stuff. I don't know how much he is on social media. He's sort of cut himself off, but if you have a chance to go back and look and watch some of his YouTube videos, he gets some really great shots, bashing shots. Absolutely phenomenal, because he will absolutely put himself right there with the camera, right there on the wheel, to get some really good close-up shots. Very fun to watch. Yeah. So again, if anybody has any questions, feel free to post in the chat, or even post in the comments if you have questions about YouTube, making videos. I'm always happy to share. I don't have any secrets. I don't have any trade secrets. I've never been in the entertainment industry per se. I myself watched a whole bunch of videos on video editing on YouTube. That's mostly how I learned how to use Adobe Premiere, is watching videos on YouTube of people showing you how to use Adobe Premiere. And I'm still, personally, I don't think I'm that good at it. There are people that go way, way in depth that I don't. There's so much more capability in that software that I personally never use. just because there's a lot of time in learning things that I'm not necessarily, you know, I'm an old dog trying to learn new tricks with video editing. So it's a little bit, a little bit tricky to learn some of the stuff there. Plus, I don't want to make my videos too crazy. Like sort of keeping it simple. And um, now maybe eventually I will spend more time and learn more Premiere stuff to utilize some of the cool features. But for now, it's pretty much just like editing the way I do it. Um, so I see we've been going for an hour. I'm gonna try and keep the show. I'm gonna say that I'm gonna keep the show at an hour. I know last week I went almost 2 hours, and it pretty much because this is just a free flow program. I don't have a script. I do have a few things that I wrote down that I was going to talk about, um, and I got a couple of them in. I do want to have a couple of shout outs. I know my friend Jack Crawlers, he had a fire, what appears to have burned down his workshop. And unfortunately, he is going to be selling a lot of his RC cars in order to just make it through. That was his income. That was his daily job. And when something like that happens, that is tragic. And personally, I got to spend some time with Adam a couple years ago, and he's a really good guy, great guy, and sad to see that happen. I know he's, and you can search Jack Crawlers. I know that he said he's going to start listing things, but by all means, he's selling his RC stuff for what is probably the worst of causes, and that is to just keep putting food on the table. So if you're able to, by all means, go and check out what he's got up for sale, and try to help him out by buying any of his stuff that you can. I also know that the RC community lost somebody last week. I personally never met the man, and that was, I believe, Brandon Tomey. He was part of the ASD thing. I know Lacos, there's a GoFundMe. Yeah, I will try and find the GoFundMe, and for next week's show, I'll try and get that up for Jack. I know that there's a GoFundMe for Brandon. If you go over and watch the Scale News update on Harley's channel, he's got a link over there for that GoFundMe for his family. I know it's terribly expensive going through funeral process and all of that. And it's sad we lost somebody so young. And again, any help that you can give there, I'm sure will be greatly appreciated. I don't deal well with matters of death. I personally have seen a lot of death in my life, and it's not something that I generally am able to really convey my thoughts on it. So I generally don't have a lot to say when it comes to that. It is sad, and again, that is anytime we lose somebody from our community, it's sad. And as far as Jack is concerned, when you lose your way of life, and you have to, he's got to start over from scratch basically. Now, I haven't talked to him. I don't know exactly what happened. I hope to God that he's got at least some insurance that's going to help him cover some of the losses that they had there. But yeah, again, anything you can do to help with Adam and his family over there is, I'm sure, greatly appreciated. So, enough of that. I don't like to get bogged down with a lot of sadness and sad news and bad news. Um, it just, it's that things happen. Um, I'm going to close out the show today. I'm going to talk about common decency. And how I ended up writing this is something I wanted to bring up on the show was a fairly simple situation, and a situation that probably everybody goes through all the time. And that is, I'm driving through a parking lot, and there's all the rows that you can turn up in order to park your car, but there's generally that sort of main drag that goes across the front of the store there where you can peel off and go down. So my wife and I are driving through the parking lot, and about two rows in front of us, I can see that the very first car, or the second car in the slot, was backing out, and a car coming in the opposite direction obviously wanted to get that parking space. So that person made a left turn in front of me, which at the time there was, a fair amount of distance there. That person made a left turn in front of me and then had to stop because the person was backing out of the space and they were kind of being slow. And he stopped and literally was just blocking so that we couldn't go forward. There was also a couple cars behind me. Now, typically, I will turn my head and kind of give people a wave and like hey, sorry, I'm blocking you here. My bad. It's not a big deal. And most people will be like, no problem. But in this case, this guy didn't even look. He didn't even care the fact that he was now blocking 3 cars from going about our business. Didn't look, didn't give a wave, didn't give anything. He just sat there waiting. Now, the whole thing probably happened over the course of maybe 30 seconds to a minute. But the fact that I sat and waited, looking at this man sitting in his car, and he did not turn his head in any way, shape, or form, while he waited for this person to back out and drive off so he could pull into that parking space. Again, it's not, it's not that big of a deal. It wasn't like I didn't go like ballistic and irate, like, what a freak. I just mentioned to my wife while we were sitting there waiting, like, that's this kind of crap happens all the time. And that it used to be common decency would just, hey, sorry. But in the grand scheme of things, it seems like people nowadays are less and less apologetic about being inconvenient to others. And it just boils down to common decency that I think the time has now come that we now have to start pointing out to people when they are ignoring that common decency or ignoring the fact that you're being an inconvenience, even a mild inconvenience to someone. You should at least acknowledge that you're being a mild inconvenience to someone. And you might even want to apologize. Hey, sorry. In the same trip that this happened, my wife and I are in a store, and a person riding by on a little mobility scooter, we stopped so that person could go in front of us. And before that person got past us so that we could go about our business, and they saw that we stopped, with our shopping cart. We're waiting. That person stopped right in front of us to stop and look at something on the counter, blocking our path to go through, be able to go about our shopping experience. And it's like, wow. And without looking, without saying anything, without saying, oops, sorry, just went about their business, inconveniencing other people without saying I'm sorry or acknowledging that they had, stopped right in front of us and we had to literally stand there and wait, or we had to turn and walk around something else to go around this person. But the fact that that happened twice was what prompted me to write that on my things to talk about. And as a whole, and as a theme going on in the last few live streams about talking about holding people accountable, common sense, common decency, this just kind of hit me as one of those things like, we can do better. We as people can do better. And I think we are at a point in time where there are enough shenanigans, there's enough nonsense, there's enough garbage going on in the world that even the little things are starting to get ignored. And just the little things that make us a community are getting ignored. And we're losing a part of that discourse in our day-to-day lives because people simply just don't want to be bothered. Want to be bothered acknowledging that I made you sit and wait in your car. I don't want to be bothered acknowledging that you're sitting there with your shopping cart waiting for me to get out of your way. I personally don't want to think that we're going to get to a point where we have to start telling people, but I almost think that we're getting to a point where we almost have to start telling people. And that, it's kind of sad, kind of not sad, but at the same time, that is the kind of shit that needs to be said. And that is why this show exists. And I hope that everybody is able to recognize those kind of situations. And when it's necessary, like sometimes it's necessary. When it's necessary, don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to tell that person, hey, you know what? That's a dick move that you just pulled right there. I was kind enough to let you go in front of me, and then you stop like I don't exist, like I'm invisible here. And now I have to, I got to take 15 extra steps to go around this, display thing at the grocery store because your inconsiderate ass decided to just stop to look at something and block the path. I mean, again, it's something that I wish that we didn't have to get to the point where we have to say something. And me personally, I didn't say anything at the time. But I do believe that we might be getting to that point. We might be getting to the point where we've lost enough in society and we've lost enough of our common decency and common courtesy amongst people in public that it might be time to start reminding people that it's okay to have common courtesy. It's okay if you're going to call somebody out that, it's okay. And I know I can be I've been that person, especially at the grocery store. Sometimes I'm a freaking zombie in the grocery store and I'll block an entire aisle and my wife will freaking smack me like, hey, get out of the way. These people are trying to get to their freaking Wheaties and Cheerios and you're blocking the way. And I'm like, sorry, it happens. If somebody were, most of the time, if there's something, I will be more than excuse me, trying to, and I try to be, at least nice about it, not like just a, hey, can you get out of the way? Hey, excuse me, like to get through, try to be nice, try to be civil. But I want to end the show on a positive note and not, on my soapbox about common sense and common decency. So, on a positive note, I want everybody to have a fantastic rest of their week. It is hump day, by the way. And we only got 2.5 days left to go, and then it's the weekend. I know that the folks out on the West Coast are getting a buttload of rain right now. I hope you all are taking care and being safe. Flash floods are no joke. Mudslides are no joke. Don't take them lightly. If you can, do as much as you can to, if you're in an area that might be prone to flooding, do as much as you can to prep. Yeah, be safe out there. Everybody have a fantastic rest of your week. We will be back next Wednesday at noon Eastern time here for another episode of Shit That Needs to Be Said. And again, for all of you that weren't here earlier, February 1st is going to be the first official episode 1 of the show. I am going to be joined by a co-host, and I'm going to save who the co-host is as a surprise for that show, unless he thinks I should spill the beans, but I'm going to try not to spill the beans because I think it would be better for everybody to just tune in and be surprised and be like, dude, oh my God, it's so cool to see you. Thank you all so much for joining me. I literally just sit here and ramble on for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours about just random crap all over the place. But I do thoroughly enjoy it. I thoroughly enjoy the RC community. I enjoy being able to chat with everyone. It is absolutely a thrill and a joy for me to be able to do this. Green Frog, man, good to see you, Kagan brother. Thank you for that. Yes, hit that like, and if you are not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Also click on that bell. Even though the system doesn't work that great, it'll give you sometimes a notification when I've got a new video or when I'm going live. And by the way, the reason why the Phoenix is over there is because I'm prepping it to go back out and get some video, because it's been a freaking month or longer since I have even put a crawling video out. But it has been super crazy around here. Holidays, freaking Christmas and Christmas decorations. This year we were pretty mild with it, and pretty mild for me is like average Clark Griswold. So typically Christmas decorations are absolutely bananas at my house. We go batshit crazy with it. This year we were a little light. But next year, we're going to go even lighter. Just to try and condense it down, my electric bill for December was insane, partially because it was super, super cold here in Tennessee, but also because the amount of electricity that I'm using to power lights and all of that stuff is insane. So we're going to scale it back a little bit. Plus, I don't have little kids anymore, and Christmas changes when your kids get older. It's not, I hate to say it, but it's not as much fun. Me personally, I loved shopping for toys. I loved getting toys and all of that stuff. And now that my kids don't really get toys anymore, it's not as much fun. Plus, the older your kids get, the more expensive stuff gets, and you can't get them a whole bunch of stuff under the Christmas tree like you used to, because now They want stuff that costs $500 each. Kurt, brother, good to see you, my friend. Thank you for coming in. Yeah. So again, thank you all so much. I do thoroughly enjoy doing the show. And I am so looking forward to officially getting this show kicked off. I'm going to talk with my co-host here about even getting maybe a little bumper video going to get the show kicked off. And I'm also trying to work on a couple other things that I'll be able to do during the show. So, man, thank you all so much. Have a wonderful rest of the week. Don't forget, smash that like and subscribe button. And don't forget to come back next Wednesday. Same bat time, same bat channel. Thank you all. We'll see you next Wednesday.